Good morning, everyone. This is Guillaume Viatre again, speaking to you from Seattle for another Strategic Narrative Underground session. Every Thursday, I welcome you for this 30 minutes free talk, during which I take an example of an existing company and I run it through the framework that I created to analyze and to build better strategic narratives. Today, we're going to look at an example, maybe a little bit of a vintage example. It's not very recent, but it's one that a generation of people that used to enjoy entertainment differently will probably relate to. Before I jump into so I know I'm leaving you a little bit, I'm teasing you a little bit. I'm not going to tell you right away which company it is because I have a question for you first. And before I do this, I want to make sure that we're all here on the same page. I know you guys on the call here this morning are mostly aware of what I mean by a strategic narrative and the framework I've built around this concept, but it might not be the case for everybody. So I'd like to quickly, very, very briefly go over the basic terms so that we're all on the same page. Because creating a building and a strategic narrative is about bringing everybody on the same page. So if we want to do that, we better be on the same page and look at the same page. So let me share my screen with you guys. All right. Again, what do I mean by a strategic narrative? A strategic narrative is a system of stories that you build intentionally to mobilize people to participate in a new opportunity. This applies to private organizations, for-profit organizations, non-profit organizations, small, large, basically to everyone who wants to create a more meaningful type of organization and business, almost like a movement, and who wants to differentiate with an opportunity to improve the way we do something. You will notice in this definition that I use the term story and narrative very carefully. I see a difference between those two terms, and I like to summarize it with this way. People will gladly pay for a story, but they will almost die for a narrative. Okay, so the point is not to have more blood and death on our hands. That's not what I mean by this. What I mean by this is that a narrative is emotionally way more resonant. A narrative is comprised of a system of story, but when you get to a narrative, you get to a point where you're really future focused and you invite people to a very powerful call to action. And this is how you build this kind of companies. So without further ado, what do I mean by a system of stories? After years and years of research, I started thinking about this over 20 years ago. I realized that there's always those same stories showing up. And I noticed that there is this pattern of 4 stories that we can see basically everywhere. And they are here on this model. I'll let you read them very quickly. It's the origin story, the opportunity story here on the upper right quadrant, the perspective story, and the product story. And so today, the company example I want to go over will be looked at through the lens of this framework. So that's why I wanted to just kind of go over this very, very quickly. I'm getting more questions. I'm getting more people emailing me about questions such as, hey, I'm looking for a guide where I want to know more about this. I can read more in details. I don't have a publicly free available guide yet, but I have 2 resources for you that you can use. One is make sure that you're on my daily publication, my daily email list, where I write 7 days a week about this topic. And the next resource you should consider is to join my upcoming workshop. It starts on September 14th, and it's limited to 12 people. And we're going to go through this framework over the course of 6 weeks to build a strategic narrative for your company. So without further ado, I have a question for you. You guys here in the audience, how do you rent a movie?
Today you rent it on Amazon Prime.
Amazon
You
Prime?
need to rent something that isn't available with one of your subscriptions already.
Okay. What else do you use? Andy or Jacob, do you guys watch movies? Maybe not, or shows.
Yeah, I do. But you usually nowadays you just stream them.
Streams it.
Especially with Disney Plus, you get their up-to-date movies like Black Widow for that premium fee, of course. But there's a debate going on right now between Scarlett Johansson and Disney about this practice. Let's see what comes of this.
What about you, Andy?
I don't control the remote in this house. Typically, if I want to watch something, I go to YouTube.
So. Okay, yeah. So today there's such a wide variety, such a wide choices of access to entertainment. It's just, and every month it sounds like there is a new one, but it was not always the case. And I am from a generation that saw the birth of the video store. I remember the first time I entered the video store was probably 6 or 7, and I went with my dad, and it was just this complete new experience, complete new world. And I also saw the death of the video store. And one of the biggest brands here in the United States used to be Blockbuster, and Blockbuster went out of business, got bankrupt in 2012, and replaced, mostly at the time, the biggest competitor, the biggest challenger was Netflix. So today's story is about Netflix, but not Netflix as we know it right now. Netflix as it appeared, as it started in 2004. It started before 2004, but we're going to look at an example of how Netflix was introduced to our community, to our market, in 2004. So I'm going to play an ad for you. It's a very brief ad. It's a very short ad. It's about 30 seconds. I think it was aired for the first time during a Super Bowl. I think so. I got to check, but it's the kind of ad you would typically see during a Super Bowl break. It's 30 seconds. We're going to watch it a couple times because it goes very, very fast. It's very short. We're going to watch it first with the sound. Are you guys ready?
There's a better way to rent movies. As many as you want for only $17.99 a month and no late fees. Go to Netflix.com. Make a list of the movies you want to see, and in about one business day, you'll get 3 DVDs. Keep them as long as you want, without late fees. Then when you're done, look, prepaid envelopes. Return one, then they'll send you another movie from your list. It's easy.
Netflix. All the movies you want, only $17.99 a month and no late fees.
All right. It's very brief, so I think we should watch it again because it's going to help us really dive into those 4 stories. There is just, it's so short, but it's just packed with so many details. Let's watch it again one more time with the sound.
There's a better way to rent movies. As many as you want for only $17.99 a month and no late fees. Go to Netflix.com. Make a list of the movies you want to see, and in about one business day, you'll get 3 DVDs. Keep them as long as you want, without late fees. Then when you're done, look, prepaid envelopes. Return one, then they'll send you another movie from your list. It's easy.
Netflix. All the movies you want, only $17.99 a month and no late fees.
This is how Netflix launched in the early 2000s. And of course, as of today, Netflix does way, way, way more than that. Netflix completely changed the way we enjoy entertainment and radically changed and invented literally binge watching too, not just renting DVDs. The DVD rental service is still it's still going. It's just phasing down. It's really decreasing every month, every year. It's decreasing more and more, but it still exists. You could still rent DVDs. Of course, now we all think about streaming, but at the time, this was really a revolution, and it was a transformation. It was a brand new narrative as far as how you access entertainment. In this video, of course, I can't help but while I'm listening to the words of the person on screen. By the way, the script is very, very short. I think it's almost not even 100 words. It's super compact, but we get so much information. As I'm listening to the script, to the person talking, I cannot help but also watch what's happening in the background. Did you notice that? It's a double layer piece of communication here. So what I'd like to propose is that we watch it again now, and let's focus just on what's going on in the background. So let's watch it now without sound. All right. I counted 7, maybe 8 characters in the background. There's the first one is the lady showing up with her kid and the stroller. Then there's the guy trying to get into the store as the store is closing, and looks at the person in the store kind of upset, and so on. So there is really 2 layers here. So let's take a look at first the origin story. So the origin story is the first one in the model here, in the framework. It is a story that, for the most part, gets pretty forgotten. You will find it in some moments, some areas of an about page on the company website, but it's a foundational story. It's really the seed, the DNA of why the company exists. So I did some research because we don't really know how this company started here in this commercial. We see it though, but let me explain. I did some research and found this article from 2006 where the New York Times interviews Rick Hastings, the founder of Netflix. And in this article, he gives us the origin story. There it is. I got the idea for Netflix after my company was acquired. I had a big late fee for Apollo 13. It was 6 weeks late, and I owed the video store $40. I had misplaced the cassette. It was all my fault. I didn't want to tell my wife about it. And I said to myself, am I going to compromise the integrity of my marriage over a late fee? Later on my way to the gym, I realized that they had a much better business model. You could pay $30 to $40 a month and work out as little or as much as you want. So basically, work out as much as you want, eat as much as you want. And for this one, he thought, why can't we just rent as many movies as we want? Maybe not as many movies, but keep them for as long as we want without being on the video store schedule. So why don't we change the rules of the game here? Why don't we change the narrative? What he does is he uses one of the 4 sources of perspective that I have identified in my model. He uses the second one here, which I call borrowing. So he borrows a business model from a different industries and applies it to a new industry. And so here are some examples of what I mean by borrowing. Some questions that you may wonder about for your company, for what you do, your activity. For instance, what if Apple ran your school district? What would happen? Can you apply the principles of storytelling to business strategy? That is how I started my company. That's here. That's what I do here with MetaHelm. What would happen if private companies were organized like social movements? And finally, what would happen to the marketing profession if everyone had software and engineering skills? Maybe we would see a new opportunity show up, and we would see a new narrative be born. So let's get back to the video here. So on the right, I'm showing you these are the words from the articles. But what do we see in the video? We see the reenactment, very close reenactment of what Rick Hastings himself had to go through. Of course, he didn't show up late at closing, but it was kind of the same situation. he was late returning his movie, and his feeling was really terrible. Like look at his word. I realized I was going to compromise the integrity of my marriage for a late fee, right? This is very powerful. This is emotionally, I don't know about you, but it's emotionally very, very strong. And what we're seeing here in the video is the same thing. This character here, that's the second character we see in this 30 seconds video, shows up in front of the store and has this argument, about, hey, come on, can I go in? Can I return my movie? You can almost overhear the voice. We don't hear what they're saying, but you can almost in your mind hear the dialogue here. And the lady looks at her clock, like at her watch, and said, sorry, it's closed. We're shutting down the window. So that's how Netflix started. So there is really much ingrained in the culture of Netflix this idea of accessing, refocusing on the customer, refocusing on people who want to enjoy entertainment, and giving them as much access as possible to as much entertainment as possible. So this is the strategic North Star over now 2 decades that the company exists. This is always the direction that this company has been following. Let's look at the opportunity. Speaking of North Star, here in the model, the opportunity story is about convenience. And these are my words, by the way. That's how I would summarize it and how I would paraphrase it. But it sounds like this: together, we can change the way we enjoy movies. So if we have a number of people now adopting this new method, maybe we'll be able to enjoy the way, enjoy movies differently, and change the way we spend time even with our families, and so on and so on. The video doesn't give us a lot here, but we can totally feel it. Let's move to the perspective. The perspective is the philosophy, the beliefs, the opinions that you have about how something should be done. And the perspective here is very, very clear. It starts from the get-go. In the first seconds of the video, the main character, our gentleman here in his couch, says there is a better way to rent movies. That could be almost the vision. Imagine a plaque for the company at Netflix sitting in the offices. There is a better, at that time, in 1990, I think they started in 97, and you could see a plaque with that. There is a better way to rent movies. There is another subtle here layer in the background, which is, who are we up against? Can you guess? We are against Superchain right here. Interestingly, look at this logo and how it's laid out, and the view here of the environment is interestingly very similar to what you could see in front of a Blockbuster store. So without pointing the finger at a specific brand, there is a subtle message saying the old narrative that we are against is embodied by other brands such as ... fill in the blank, but visually we're giving you a hint. So the perspective story is really about what is it that you stand for? How do you zag when everybody zigs? And what are the core of the belief with which you create and you start your company? The fourth story is the product story. And basically, this video is just a product story in itself. It tells you everything about how the product works. And we have to bring this back into context. At the time, Netflix was new, awareness was low. They needed to explain how easy it is, and so that's mostly the job of that video. And it's explained in very, very crisp, very easy, simple to understand details. I want to highlight that because I see this all the time. The story, the product story has to be extremely easy. You have to make it sound like you're talking to somebody who has no idea about your expertise and your domain. Here, it's broken down into very, very simple steps, and there's probably 4 or 5 of them. First, you go to netflix.com. That's how the platform used to look like. 16 years ago. Then you get 3 DVDs, step number 2. That's what the product does. And then when you're done watching one, you use the prepaid envelope and you return it. You've got the script on the right. The product stories really walks you step by step through how you're going to help, how you're going to be able to reach this opportunity of easy, penalty-free, I was looking for this, penalty-free entertainment. This is really the vehicle to get there. So how do we go there? It's got to be clear, it's got to be easy, and that's what this video does. All right, this is the summary of the strategic narrative for Netflix in 2004. It started with this bad feeling, this emotional reaction when the founder of the company tried to return a cassette that he had lost. And he's like, wait a minute, I am compromising something that is much more important for me than a late fee. And I am probably not the only one in this case. There are millions of people like me, and not just in the United States, maybe everywhere. At the time, I'm not sure he's thinking like that already. I'm adding this, but as of today, it's easy to understand why now Netflix got so big. It's because it was something that that the very vast population, very big number of people were running into. I bet in Germany, right, Jacob? Did you have late fees? Do you know if you had late fees? If you had to ever go to a video store? I know, like in France, when I was a teenager, I would return a videotape, late. We had late fees too. It was a very universal, common thing.
I think in Germany, I believe we had late fees, not as outrageous as Blockbuster might have had them, but you had to pay money when you were late.
Yeah, it was it was a catch-22 for Netflix and Blockbuster, because in the data you can research, but in the data shows that the late fees were actually a very substantial part of Blockbuster's revenue. That's very, very much how they were making money. So stopping this, becoming the video store, the antithesis, the opposite of video store, sparked a lot of questions. How are we gonna make money now if we can't charge people for late fees? So that completely changed the game. So to be able to do that and drive that business model home, Netflix had to come up with a completely new narrative. They didn't know if it was going to work. In fact, at some point, Netflix was almost going to go out of business. I think it was around actually 2006 or 2007, 2006, I think, or 5 or 6. And Rick Hastings went to Blockbuster and offered for Blockbuster to buy the company, to buy Netflix for something around $50 million. And Blockbuster denied and declined the offer and say, no, we don't believe this is going to work. Kind of ironic, right? Because we know now how it turned out. So what can we see here in this example? So pattern seems to repeat itself. Netflix really framed there at the time, at least in this piece of communication, Netflix really framed the strategic narrative around a clear enemy. And although we know which brand they are thinking about, it's interesting to see that they're not against really blockbusters. They have nothing against Blockbuster, but they're against a practice. They're against a modus operandi, a mode of functioning that they think hinders, that is not fair. Why would you have to pay such big fees? So this is really what a strategic narrative is for: is to go against an established and sometimes toxic way to do something. The irony is that sometimes we're so used to those ways of doing things that we're not aware of them anymore. We don't realize that they're around us. Maybe a question for you: You can think about it, or we can engage in a conversation. But maybe for you to think about is, what is around you a narrative that you see? Or it could be about your company or just your daily life. What is a common narrative that you see that feels unfair, that feels like it's not right anymore, or it's not working anymore, or it's too costly, or it's creating, it's damaging for the environment or for society. It's damaging for the economy. It's damaging for a subset of your community there. It doesn't have to be something huge. I mean, Netflix decided to go up against something really, really big. It can be also something a lot smaller, something that is just about your neighborhood or your city, or the network of people you have around the world sharing a passion around something. But that's the question I'd like to you to ponder, and think about. What is a narrative that you feel like needs to be changed? That's how you start a strategic narrative. Maybe you'll run into it as you go to the gym, like Rick Hastings did, or go to the store, or go visit a friend. Anyways, I'll let you think about that.
I have one question about the right side again of the model, about the opportunity story and the product story. Because when you write a website for a product or a service, you have always in copywriting, you have benefits and the features. And what it feels to me is that the opportunity could be expressed in the emotional benefits the product will give you if you use it, and the product story are the features, how it's working, what you can expect from it.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's how I frame it. In this model, visually here, I make just a little connection right here, and I purposefully separate those stories to break things down. But another way to represent it would be to do this. They're connected together. It's about the same. So I'm glad you're seeing this connection here. But it's right. The product story is really about a few simple things. Is what is the product? What does it do? And how do I get it? And when I mean what does it do, it's what are the features and what benefits do they bring to you? So in this video, clearly the product does something very simple. It helps you select the movies. First, you go on the platform. So it's easy. You don't have to go to the store. So it's all about convenience. And then you order your movies. They show up at your in your inbox. So again, convenience. And whenever you're ready, you can send it back. So it's about freedom of enjoying your movies at your own leisure. And then to finish answering your question or your comment here, the opportunity is about something that should be, it's emotionally resonant because it should be beyond what you're trying to do just with your company. It should be something much, much bigger. It should be something that maybe is impossible to completely change. Maybe it's just a dream. But if you can change some of it, maybe we're better off. And it begs the question, why is your company why is the company having an impact or around you? That's what the opportunity story is about. It's not about just the business opportunity for you. It's about what is the opportunity we can drive if we have a different way to operate here.
All right.
This is a good question.
I'm thinking about how this virus has forced this process to happen again with movie theaters, and it's not the same situation, and it's messier because maybe it isn't a better way to watch movies at your house than the movie theater when that is the experience you're looking for. And it wasn't an opportunity anyone was looking for I think so. It's just messy,
Yes.
and nobody's figured it out right in the right way yet, I think.
Well, I think you're spot on, Joshua. With 20 something years later, or 20, basically 20 years later, it's not like someone decided that they wanted to change the movie theater experience. It's out of our control, and so opportunities emerge from different, I think, from different possibilities, different occasions, different ways. You can think about them as an unaddressed window of opportunity. I mean, the definition of the word opportunity comes from the Latin bringing the ship safely back to the harbor, which is a set of conditions that open a window to go somewhere more safely. So it's about managing risk. So that's when it's available and we can go there. Now, with to your point, with COVID, it was created by a virus, so nobody could control that. We are the victims of the circumstances, right? And so it's not like the opportunity to reinvent the movie theater was actually intentionally designed. We have to adapt and change the whole experience because the world around us has changed. So that might be another source for how you think about an opportunity as you build your company. I want to show you. Let's see if I have it here. Okay, so this is just a list from a model called the PESTEL model that is used in strategy to look at what's going on around us. And I really like that model because it's quite comprehensive, and it can give you idea to think about the way you're kind of framing the opportunity for your company. And your comment really made me think of this because what we're seeing is that, clearly we're talking, your comment is about an environmental factor, right? The environmental, the health, the health and social environment in 2020 changed radically. This all of a sudden it's a complete different set of criteria. Everything runs differently, and we're still dealing with this. So that's that, but it could be different things. It could be, the economic factors also was a subset, consequence of what happened. Technology took over many things, and so on. So this is just a good framework to get you started about what is the opportunity you see out there that you'd like to address, that you think is unaddressed, and that you'd like to change. I go through this in much more detail during my workshop. I go through other examples. This is it for Netflix 2004. I thank you so much for tuning in again and letting me walk you through another example of a company. If you'd like me to research company examples that you have in mind, please email them to me, share them with me. I have the list is building up, and I look forward to go over another one next week.